Good afternoon. The title of my presentation is Next Gen Drivers Analysis for Sequential Monadic Studies. I am Pradipta Sarkar from Procter & Gamble, and this is a joint work with two of my colleagues from Procter & Gamble and a few students and their faculty advisor from National University of Singapore. This is a typical survey questionnaire. After a concept or product use test, the panelist is usually asked one or two key questions like overall ratings, net promoter score, or purchase intent. This key metric is followed by rating questions on various attributes. Here is an easy to understand example from a survey of smartphone. So the attributes are about different features of smartphone like display quality, camera quality, quality of sound, battery life, ergonomics, and so on. These questions are called direct questions, or in short, DQs. Usually 5, 9, or 11-point hedonic scale is used. Drivers analysis is a collection of related statistical methodologies intended to understand why consumers like or dislike a product or a concept. The key to building a drivers analysis model is the construction of unobservable latents, also called factors. These factors are created from the direct questions or DQs. And in today's presentation, the focus will be primarily on the topic of factor analysis because that is the key to building the drivers model. Drivers analysis technique models the key metric as a function of the factors. With drivers analysis, we are able to quantify the importance of different factors in predicting the key metrics. Typical drivers analysis techniques are factor regression and different variants of structural equations model. Monadic survey. In a monadic survey, each panelist uses only one product. For example, in this diagram, a quarter of the panelists uses each of the product A, B, C, and D. Monadic test can be blinded or can be branded. Drivers analysis methodology described in the previous slide is designed for this type of studies. There is another kind of survey called sequential monadic survey. The sequential monadic survey is like when each panelist uses multiple products. In this example, each panelist is using 3 products, but in different randomized order. This survey design is popular because A, it requires smaller sample sizes, making the study more affordable. B, it has faster fielding time. And C, it improves comparison between concepts. The data from the above study can be captured in wide format as in this table. Here, each row corresponds to a single panelist. We capture the sequence in which the panelists use the products. And after that, we capture the key metric and the DQs for all the products. Here, each row is a panelist. The first step to build drivers analysis is to create factors. To do this, the data is now stacked in the long format. In this table, the first column is the panelist ID, second column is the product used by each panelist, and the next column, the yellow column, is the key metric, and the green columns are the DQ ratings. Since each panelist uses 3 products, we have 3 rows per panelist. Then the factors are created from these DQs, the green columns. And while doing this, the factor scores, each of the rows are considered independent, just like monadic studies. After creating the factors scores are computed, and these factor scores are used in building the factor regression model or structural equation model. Now we will talk about certain issues with sequential monadic survey design. The first one is sampling hierarchy. In real world, some panelists are more optimistic and nicer, and they tend to give higher rating than the average customers. Conversely, some panelists are inherently very strict and they have high bar, and they would normally give lower ratings for any products as compared to the average customers. The rating questions, for example, by panelist number one are all correlated for different product legs, just because those are rated by the same person. The naive drivers analysis approach described in the previous slide does not take care of this issue because it treats each row of the data in the long format as independent. But we cannot ignore the order of the product or concept. So this sampling hierarchy is an issue with sequential monadic survey. The second one is called carryover effect. Let us say you are user of one of the recent high-end fancy smartphone models with amazing features like foldable, terrific camera and whatnot. If I ask you to rate it, you would probably give a rating of 9 or 10. Now, if we switch you to a 5-year-old model and ask you to rate that phone, your rating will be very low, 3 or 4, maybe even lower. But that older phone was actually a decent one. So the rating that you give to that older phone is probably lower rating than what it actually deserves. The same thing happens in sequential monadic studies too. If the first product the panelist is using is a great one, and the next one is just an average product, then usually the rating for the second product is much lower than what it deserves. This is called contrast effect. Similarly, acceptability of an excellent product tends to be not very high when it is preceded by another excellent product. This is called convergence effect. Both of these effects are known as carryover effect. The usual naive factor analysis method ignores these issues as well. But there are established statistical methodologies to handle carryover effect that are quite popular in the clinical studies. The third issue is called missing by design. In sequential monadic survey, often the panelist uses only a subset of the entire collection of products or concepts. In this example, each panelist is presented with 2 out of the 3 product legs in randomized order. Missing by design is particularly more common if the number of concepts or products to be tested is high, like 20 or even more. In that case, all presentation orders are not possible from practical considerations like panelist fatigue, limited budget, limited time, etc. This issue is also not handled by the traditional naive factor analysis done for the drivers analysis. So hopefully now you are convinced that the drivers analysis using naive factor analysis method has several drawbacks for sequential monadic studies. And depending on the actual study, some of these could be quite severe. If the study is of more sensorial nature, like evaluating look, feel, touch, smell, taste, these studies will be usually more severe as compared to the studies that are more functional in nature. We have a recommendation to overcome the drawbacks, which turned out to be a simple one and works quite well. To introduce the methodology, we will first create a series of simulated sequential monadic surveys. Then we will run the naive approach of factor analysis and our proposed approach on the same data sets and compare, and then finally make the conclusion. Okay, now we will demonstrate the simulation, and in order to do that, let us consider a relatively simpler study design. We will generate 150 panelists, each presented with the same 3 product legs, but in various randomized order. And each panelist will answer 30 questions. And let us further assume that these 30 questions are grouped into 3 blocks of correlated DQs, each consisting of 10 questions. These 3 blocks of simulate the idea of the 3 latents or factors. Finally, we will generate hundreds of such simulated studies with various combinations of model parameters as described in the next slide. We will simulate data from sequential monadic studies using a model. By doing so, we will have complete information about the correlation structures of these simulated studies. Then we will try out our naive factor analysis method on these simulated data sets, and also use our proposed method, which we will describe later, on the same data set. And then we will compare the results. Here, in this model, the suffix I, J, K denote respectively the ith panelist, jth product leg in the current period, and kth question. There's a rating of that. On the other hand, J prime is the product leg used in the previous period. We simulate the response for the kth question using this linear model with 2 fixed effects. One, the effect of the product used in the current period, and 2, the effect of the product used in the previous period. These are denoted by mu and tau respectively. In addition to these 2 fixed effects, we also consider 3 potential correlations through the use of 3 random effects. These 3 potential correlations are the following. Same panelist answering the same questions for different product legs. For example, panelist number 1 answering the question number 10 for product leg A and product leg B used in the period 1 and period 2 respectively. Since these are same questions answered by the same panelist, we expect this to be correlated. The next one is the following. Same panelist answering different questions that are within the same block of questions. For example, answers to question number 21 and question number 22 by the panelist number 1 do belong to the same block of questions. Therefore, those are also expected to be correlated. Finally, the inter-block correlation, which is the correlation between these 3 groups of questions. So the correlation between the gray group, yellow group, and the orange group of questions. In our simulation, we introduced various levels of correlations between these 3 blocks of variables. I will skip the mathematical details because of time constraint. Okay. Now, what do we find? Let us see what happens when we use the traditional naive approach of factor analysis, pretending no carryover effect. We capture the data into the wide format like below. Then the 3 factors are constructed from this data, and a heat map of factor loadings are created. If there were truly no carryover effects, then the same questions from different product legs will be loaded into the same factor. what that means is question number 1, question number 31, and question number 61 in that case should belong to the same factor, because those are actually the first question answered by the panelists for different product legs. And so these are the same questions. Similarly, question number 2, question number 32, and question number 62 are also the same questions for different product legs, and hence those should belong to the same factor. Okay. Next, we created 3x30 matrix of heat map from factor loadings, where the rows correspond to the product legs and the columns correspond to the direct questions. In this heat map visualization, the 3 factor loading values for each DQ are used as RGB coordinates to create the visual. The ideal heat map should look like the picture on the left. This heat map has same DQs for all products loaded in the same factor. That is why the color map looks completely vertical. But a typical heat map using the traditional naive factor analysis will look like the picture on the right. That's where color maps are not vertical columns of same color, and there are color bleeding. Sometimes the color map is horizontal and also quite confusing. This shows that the same DQs of all products are not necessarily loaded into the same factor. Therefore, we have our proposal for the new method, which is the carryover adjustment proposal. On the simulated data, separately for each original DQ, fit an ordinary least square regression model with the current and the previous product legs as explanatory variable. Then calculate the proposed carryover adjusted response as this, which is nothing but taking the original DQ response and subtracting the effect of the previous product leg from that original DQ. Calculate factors with these adjusted DQ responses and create heat map of factor loadings as before. Our proposed method works remarkably well to recover the original groupings of variables, even when high carryover and strong interblock correlation exists. To illustrate this, let us consider a matrix of factor loadings from 2 specific scenarios. Number 1, 0 interblock correlation, meaning the 3 blocks of DQs as independent are independent in this simulated data sets. Okay. And number 2 is high interblock correlation, meaning the 3 blocks of DQs in the simulated data sets are highly correlated among themselves. Okay, for both scenarios, we will use both the naive factor analysis approach and our proposed approach and compare the results. So first, the interblock correlation equal to 0 case. In this case, as we move from the bottom to the top, the carryover parameter tau increases, which representing increasingly high carryover effect in the simulated data set. The left column represents results from our proposed method, and the right column represents results from the naive factor analysis method. In this case, the naive factor analysis method and our proposed method work almost equally well, as we can see from the heat map. In the heat maps are vertical columns of colors. this shows that the original 3 blocks of DQs are retrieved back by these 3 factors by both methods. A slight exception is probably the highest carryover subcase on the top right corner, where the naive approach could not really pick up all the true factor structures. It's difficult to notice that from the Zoom meeting, but there are some color bleeding and some different shades of colors in this heat map, which says that the approach didn't really work very well. But overall, both approaches are giving same results when the interblock correlation is 0. Now, with the high interblock correlation, it's a different story. Okay, the heat map for the naive approach are often not vertical. They are sometimes instead horizontal. And sometimes there are some color bleeding or different shades of color in the heat map, and which makes the heat map quite confusing and incorrect. Which what this says is that the naive approach does not work in the cases where interblock correlation is high. On the other hand, our proposed methodology works remarkably well. We are able to retrieve the original factor structures in a nice, clean way for all levels of the carryover effect. You see that the carryover effect, it goes from 0.1 to very high up as 0.8. So even for the highest carryover effect case, the heat maps are clean and completely vertical, which says that whereas the naive approach does not work, our approach works extremely well. So here are the conclusions and recommendations. We were able to incorporate the concept of carryover effect in constructing the factors for drivers analysis. So our recommendation is to compute factor scores using our method and feed those factor scores to model the key measures using either factor regression or structural equation methods. This simple approach can be easily extended to include higher order carryover effects as well, like second order carryover effects or more. And we have tried those, and those also work quite well. So this is our recommendation for drivers analysis for sequential monadic tests. Thank you. This is the end of my presentation, and I thank you all for listening, and I'm ready to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you all.